With all the facts, fiction, and disinformation flying around these days, it can be hard to decipher the truth depending on where you get your information. Amna Nawaz breaks down how recent lies about President Biden wanting to end the eating of red meat reveal concerning realities about our political climate.
No burgers on July 4th. No steaks on the Barbie. I'm sure Middle America is just going to love that.
The false story started last week, a day after the UK tabloid The Daily Mail published an article that claimed President Biden's climate plans could limit Americans to one hamburger a month. Former Trump White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow blasted Biden's climate goals as anti-beef. Kudlow and the Daily Mail article both cited a University of Michigan study.
Speaking of stupid, there's a study coming out of the University of Michigan which says that to meet the Biden Green New Deal targets, America has to, get this, America has to stop eating meat, stop eating poultry, fish, seafood, eggs, dairy, and animal-based fats.
But that is not what the study said. It actually found that reducing red meat intake could help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It was never tied to Biden's climate plans.
They want to control your transportation. They want to control your food.
But the article and Kudlow's outrage set off a right-wing media frenzy. The misinformation spread to online news sites and people's Facebook feeds. Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott and lawmakers even posted about it, falsely claiming Biden wanted to severely limit red meat. Amid criticism, Fox News issued a clarification about their reporting.
The data was accurate, but a graphic and a script incorrectly implied that it was part of Biden's plan for dealing with climate change. That is not the case.
The Beef Whopper shows how misinformation can quickly spread and take hold in the current political climate.
Canceling Dr. Seuss isn't stupid, it's intentional.
It's similar to the conservative uproar over the false stories of Dr. Seuss being quote-unquote canceled, when the book's publisher simply said it would stop printing several Seuss books with racist depictions.
Now, to discuss what that study actually said about our diets and greenhouse gas emissions, I'm joined by Martin Heller. He's one of the authors of the study and is a senior research specialist at the Center for Sustainable Systems at the University of Michigan. Dr. Heller, welcome to the NewsHour, and thank you for making the time. I have to ask, when you saw this story spreading, when you saw that it was linked to your study, what was your initial reaction?
Disbelief, befuddlement. Yes, it was a long ways from our intention with the study. We certainly were not aiming to look at policy recommendations with this particular study.
And what was your intention with the study? Let's separate fact from fiction here. What did your study actually say?
Sure. Well, really, we were just looking to demonstrate the opportunity there is in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions from making shifts in our diet. So we looked at a number of hypothetical scenarios. What if we reduced our animal-based food consumption by 50% in the U.S.? What would that mean for our greenhouse gas emissions? And we did an additional scenario. What if we reduced our beef consumption to 90%, took that even farther? And what we found was that reducing our animal-based food consumption by 50% can lower our greenhouse gas emissions from our diet, from producing that food, by 36%. If we take beef down to that very low level, 90% lower than our current consumption, it would cut our emissions from food production in half.
So you were essentially evaluating different scenarios of what could possibly happen. But to be clear, did any part of your study say that Americans should stop eating red meat?
Not at all, no. Again, we're presenting the opportunity, and yes, it was not intended to be a recommendation. These are fairly extreme scenarios, I would say, largely to demonstrate those opportunities.
So let me ask you to explain the science a little bit here. In terms of the link between greenhouse gas emissions and our diet, specifically Americans' diets around red meat, what should we know about that? What is the environmental footprint of our current meat consumption?
Producing animals contributes greenhouse gas emissions in a few ways. One big part is growing the feed that is required for those animals. And animals like cattle, like beef cattle, require a lot of feed to offer a unit of food that we can then consume. Those ruminant animals, like beef cattle, have an additional impact in that their biology, the biology that allows them to get nutrients from roughages like grass, as a byproduct produces methane. And we know methane to be a very potent greenhouse gas. So that is a major contributor to the emissions associated with animal-based food. Just to put it in perspective a little bit, red meat, so beef, pork, and lamb, represents 9% of our calories in the average U.S. diet. It represents 47% of the greenhouse gas emissions associated with our diet. That's those three, and beef is 40% of the emissions associated with our diet. So beef is a big contributor here in the U.S., where we consume such large quantities of it.
Dr. Heller, let me ask you, because you grew up on a livestock farm, we should point out, what do you make of the way this whole conversation has unfolded, the life it's taken on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important conversation for us to be having. I find it's a bit unfortunate that the conversation gets pushed to such extremes, because as we're demonstrating here, there are real opportunities in, relatively moderate changes in our diet in contributing to this climate crisis that we're currently a part of, in contributing to the solution to that climate crisis.
That is Dr. Martin Heller of the Center for Sustainable Systems at the University of Michigan. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.